Hey you guys, so I'm back again. My previous video, if you guys want to check it out, is my video on the Lupron injection. I demonstrated that for you all earlier this morning while I was at the hotel in Orlando, and now I am back in my hometown, or my home base I should say, not where I was born. And everything worked out fine. My 3 kids are happy and we're good to go. Anyway, so I wanted to touch back on the contract because now I actually have it in front of me. So like I said, mine is 67 pages. I don't know how long other people's contracts are, but I would expect them to be at least 50 pages because this is a very extensive and thorough document. So again, I'm not going to read mine word for word because that would violate confidentiality, but I am going to go through the major themes and it should be a lot more in depth than what I had discussed before. So the first part, it talks about, like I said before, who the surrogate is, the gestational surrogate, which is me, and who the intended parent is. Then it goes into saying that the intended mother is above the age of 21. That's important. And it says that the surrogate is also above the age of 21 and that we're both acting in good faith. Nobody's trying to hide anything from anybody. This is something that we expect to actually carry out. Then it says that it tells what is our native languages. And in this case, both of us speak English. Then it says that I warrant that I don't want to have a parental relationship with the child that's going to result from this agreement. It says that we agree to confidentiality to maintain that, and parents are different. Some parents are okay with the surrogate speaking openly about it online. Others want to keep things private because it may or may not be successful, and they especially don't want to be identified on Facebook or some type of social media because there's no telling whether or not they've even announced it to their family. And this truly is their pregnancy, even though I'm the one who's carrying it. This is their experience, it's their choices, and it should feel like their pregnancy beyond the fact that the intended mother would not be experiencing the same symptoms or have to endure labor the same way I would. But essentially, a surrogate should do her best to keep the family as involved as possible. Okay, the next part says that I'm going to respect any legal proceedings that are necessary to enforce and establish any rights for the parties in the agreement, and that includes establishing the parental right and the financial obligations regarding that child who's born as a result of this contract. We're agreeing to be intentionally fully bound by the terms in this contract. It says that I am going to consent to relinquishing the child, and that this is not payment for that. This is considered an agreement, and I'm going to place the custody of the child that results from these fertility procedures in the hands of the intended parent. It says where we're citizens of. So I am a citizen of the United States, and so is the intended parent. Sometimes that's not the case. In some cases, the intended parent might be from a different country like Asia or Africa or something like that. And that's important because some countries it's not legal. So it's important to establish where the adoption should take place, in what county, and under what jurisdiction it has to take place in order for it to be legally effective. And again, it goes into covenants or promises. So essentially it goes through the whole thing again. I'll surrender custody. The intended mother is the sole legal parent of the child. Upon any signs of labor, I'm going to notify the intended parent so that she can be involved in the process and she can be present during the birth. That I will allow her to fully participate in the pregnancy, that I will sign any medical releases necessary to keep her involved in the pregnancy, meaning I'm not going to say, oh, well, this is my pregnancy and you won't get information on this and that or something like that. She has full rights to anything medical that happens to me during the term of this agreement. I'm sorry for the crying in the background. Okay, residency and domicile type of stuff. So it says which state the child is to be born in, and with that you have to establish with the agency and the intended parent that you will be in that state in the last trimester. For the first 2 trimesters, it varies by agency, but in my contract it says that I'm allowed to travel outside of the state with the express and explicit written agreement of the intended parent and the attending OB. So I'd have to get approval from the intended parent. I'd have to notify her. She would have to send an email or something in writing to say that she approves of me leaving the state. And additionally, the OB would have to agree with that as well. I know that I have a trip coming up in March. Well, it was a trip that I planned, so I have to make sure that it's okay with the intended parent. I wanted to go to like a secluded cabin in the hills of Tennessee. So that could be approved or it might not be approved. I know that I don't intend on flying on an airplane. I don't want to be in any enclosed space with anybody other than my children. So most likely I would drive just to ensure that I'm not in any enclosed space with the risk of catching COVID or my children catching it. Because even if my children are on a plane, I don't have pediatric N95s. I only have an adult N95. So I would be protected because I would wear my N95 in a surgical mask, but all of them would not be. So therefore, once we take our masks off and we go into a cabin, then they could spread it to me. And then therefore I would put the baby at risk. And I've agreed in this contract to not do so, to put the baby at risk. But anyway, like I said, it makes sense that I not be permitted to leave the U.S. at any time, because if I were held in any other country, then how would the intended parent get to me? They might not have the legal sanctions in that country in order for the adoption to go through. I might have to remain there for OB care. It just doesn't make sense to leave the country. So I know that one time I was matched with a couple, and unfortunately that didn't go through because I had to go to my brother's wedding in Jamaica, and that was not something I was going to move on. And I understand that. I totally respect the intended parents for moving on, because I was going to go to my brother's wedding. That was just going to happen. So that's one of those things that I tell you, you have to know where your soft and hard boundaries are, like things that you can be flexible on and things that you will not miss. And in that case, I wasn't going to miss my own brother's wedding. And it just says, just as backup, that if the child were to be delivered outside the state of Florida, that I would still have to immediately transfer custody of the child to the intended parent, regardless of any laws that go against what is in the original jurisdiction selected for this agreement. I said ingredient. Additionally, it says that I'm going to have my name taken off the birth certificate of this child upon the legal process being completed. So when the child is born, I essentially would have to keep the child for, I think, until we leave the delivery unit. Once you get to the postpartum floor, then the intended parents could stay with the child. In my case, they actually got a private room for the intended parents, so they really bent over backwards, and they were allowed to take the child with them. Now, in my prior experience, the parents actually were going through parenting classes. This was their first child, so I actually spent a lot of time with the baby because I was kind of like babysitting. That's essentially what I was doing. And she was drinking some colostrum. I was pumping and I was feeding her at the hospital. And then I left before they did. Actually, she didn't go with me. I had nothing to do with that. She was with her parents, and they stayed a day or two after. They were still in the hospital. And that's not because anything was wrong with the baby. It was just because I was ready to go. After 24 hours, I was ready to leave. So, um, so that's that. In order for pre-planned adoption, that's blah, blah, blah type of stuff. I mean, obviously. And then, like I said, we go into like all these different terms, including pre-planned adoption, what that means, embryo transfer cycle, embryo transfer completion, embryo transfer procedure, fetus, gamete, gestational surrogate, informed consent, maternity or obstetrical care, nuchal translucency, STD or sexually transmitted disease, sperm donor, stillbirth. All these terms are fleshed out. And then we go into the risks of congenital or any other type of defect, disease, or illness or abnormality. So we go into that. We go into physical exams, testing, and treatment. I have to agree to all of that. I have to cooperate and communicate within 24 hours, like I said before, by phone, text message, or an email. My failure to communicate as outlined could result in a delay or forfeiture of my scheduled living expense payment. I have to notify the intended parent of any changes in my life, including marriage, divorce, or an intimate sexual relationship with a new partner, change of address, illness or death of a party, loss of employment, changes in insurance coverage, exposure to any communicable diseases or illnesses. It doesn't cancel the agreement or invalidate it. It just is something that I have to definitely communicate to the intended parent. Makes perfect sense. Then it goes into the sperm and the oocytes. It talks about sexual relations. I'm not supposed to have any unless that person has been medically screened by my treating physicians and are found to be free of any STD or illness. And it has to be submitted in writing to the intended mother and her professionals. And if I were to be active with a screened partner, I would refrain from any relations for any period of time required by the attending physician during this agreement. So if the reproductive endocrinologist said do not do anything for the first 12 weeks or something like that, then I would be obligated to refrain from it. If I became pregnant with my own child during the agreement through my own fault, the intended mother has no legal or financial obligation to me or the child, and I'm required to fully reimburse her. And if I should acquire any disease or illness through sexual relations or neglect or carelessly engaging in any high-risk activity, then I am liable to pay her in damages. Yep. Then it starts to go into all the fees. So the fees include, and I'm not going to tell you the amounts. I'm just going to tell you what type of stuff it would include. Loss of reproductive organs. So it talks about fallopian tubes, ovaries, the uterus, like a whole hysterectomy. Then it goes into embryo transfer, what that requires, and just compensation for that. The appointments are going to be determined by the attending fertility specialist, and that I'm agreeing to attend all the appointments, follow the treatment regimen, and to submit a blood pregnancy test following each transfer to determine whether the pregnancy has been achieved or not. Talks about multiple pregnancy, how I would be compensated for that, and the fact that the intended mother understands the risks that could come with that multiple pregnancy. Talks about selective reduction and in what case that would be permissible. Talks about elective termination and in what cases that would be permissible. It talks about prenatal care, how I have to utilize the services of the OB, follow all medical instructions, obtain the care from a licensed obstetrician that is mutually agreed upon by myself and the intended mother. I have to deliver in a hospital unless a birthing center or other location is agreed upon by both of us. I have to submit to alpha fetal protein testing agreed upon as a supplement to a licensed obstetrician. Hold on. Sorry. I'm all out of whack. No. That's midwife as a supplement to a licensed obstetrician. Submit to the alpha fetal protein testing, as well as any other medical tests or procedures recommended by the OB. Sorry about that. And the intended mother shall have the right at all times, respecting her privacy, to attend doctor visits and procedures. So she can always come, she can call, teleconference, or I can email her within 24 hours of the doctor visit or the medical procedure to update her on that. Then it goes into all the activities that I should avoid and that could cause harm to the fetus, including but not limited to dental work, cigarette smoke, secondhand smoke, high impact sports, contraindicated recreation, entertainment, or amusement activities such as roller coaster riding, riding a horse, consumption of caffeinated drinks, anything that's alcoholic, that includes wine coolers and any food containing alcohol such as rum cake, consumption of any legal drugs, any medications without the express written approval of the OB. Any body piercing or tattooing is prohibited, and I agree to submit to any requested testing if any questions should arise about my activity. I also cannot be exposed to radiation, toxic chemicals, including hair dye, products containing formaldehyde, such as nail polish or gel, or any communicable diseases. And if I am, I would have to immediately advise the intended parent. Talks about housekeeping and prenatal yoga. It talks about prevention of acquiring the coronavirus, the Zika virus. Talks about prenatal massage. It talks about a healthy diet consistent with the recommendation of an OB and the American Academy of Obstetrics. It says I'll avoid use of artificial sweeteners, foods that have been genetically modified, as well as food additives, if it could potentially harm the fetus by seeping into my breast milk. I already spoke on how I would be obligated to submit to any testing such as nuchal translucency, chorionic villi, villus sampling, and an amniocentesis to diagnose any type of genetic abnormality in the child. Let's see. Talks about me being held liable if there's a birth defect as a result of my conduct. We've already gone through that, but like I said, it's very redundant because it's extremely thorough. Talks about C-section, what the compensation is for that for recovery, and the fact that I would comply with the physician's recommendation. So it's not something that would be forced upon me, but if the physician recommended it, if the child was in some type of distress, then I would be obligated to go with it, no matter if I have a fear or some type of apprehension about it. If it were in the best interest of the child, then I would be obligated to go forward with it. Intra or extra uterine fetal surgery, talks about that. Not really going to go deep into that. Talks about, again, the determination of parentage and parental responsibility, medical records release, which we've already gone through, what happens upon the termination of the agreement, and just the pre-birth living expense compensation in terms of the estrogen hormone therapy, like when you start up your meds, after each transfer cycle, what that compensation would be, because we're not paid based upon the success of the cycle, but we are paid at the completion of it because of the effort and the time and the dedication to the medicine regimen, and the time to go to the appointments and actually do the transfer, right? So for me, I have to drive about 4 hours to go to this particular reproductive endocrinologist or fertility specialist. So it's not like it's a few minutes away from me. Then it goes into the fee schedule. So depending on how much the surrogate agreed to be paid in total for this journey, it talks about how often it'll be paid out, and usually the first payment comes after the it's like a tongue twister, HCG HCG levels are greater than 3,000. So in my previous surrogacy, mine were like through the roof high. And so I knew that I was pregnant with twins pretty early on. It was kind of obvious. Unfortunately, the second child did not make it past, I think it was 7.5 weeks. I went into an appointment and there were not two heartbeats anymore. It was very sad, but it was funny because, well, not funny, it was interesting because the intended parents were more worried about me. They're like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Are you okay?" Because this is your child. I feel so bad, because I'm responsible, for this life that's within me. Of course, I had no influence on what happened. I was taking the best care of myself. I would never do anything to put a child in harm's way, but the child did not make it. So it's one of those things that was tough. So it talks about that whole fee schedule. I'm not going to go into all that. It talks about bed rest, breast milk. If you, let's see, full or partial bed rest, if there's a stillbirth, in the event that there's a live birth at 28 weeks, obviously you wouldn't have gone all the way up to 36 or 40. So how much you would be compensated for that? Because you initially agreed to a certain fee. So if you only carry the child until 28 weeks and the child does survive, it's still fair enough to say that you might have to remain in the hospital for a certain amount of time due to any type of complication that could have happened. You might be providing breast milk for an extended period of time. You might need additional recovery. You might have undergone an invasive procedure in order to take, for this child to be removed from your womb, like a C-section. So those are things that are taken into consideration. I think for the most part, the rest of the contract is just about insurance, about my right to an attorney. Yep. Once again, it goes over custody, legal representation. It goes over all the parties involved. Basically says, hey, you're making this promise, don't go back on your word. You have to get things notarized, acknowledging your the terms of the contract, conditions, rights, duties, and liabilities to which I will be bound. And that's pretty much it. And it talks about, like I said, if something were to happen to the intended parent, who she selected to act as the guardian for the child if she were unable to parent. Something happened. And of course, we hope that nothing like that would ever happen, but we do, it's good to have a plan B, because in these cases, that's another thing. I think there have been a couple instances where I've seen the surrogate offer to adopt the child, and that is sticky. And if you say that in a forum like Facebook groups, you will be ripped to shreds, because that is thought of as being unethical. As a surrogate, your role is to birth the child, and that is it. From there on, all the other legal implications, the adoption, the guardianship, all that has nothing at all to do with you. And when you put yourself in a place to say, oh, I'll be the parent of that child or something, it sounds what they're going to call crazy. They're going to call you a nut job and tell you that you're crazy. Now, of course, we're women, so we're nurturers. And so, like, if you've done adoption, you've done foster parenting, I see where your mindset might come from. But I'll just tell you right now, don't ever verbalize that publicly, because you will be torn apart and you will not have people support you in that. And like I said, when you go into this type of journey, it's with the mindset that you understand that you are not an active parent in this child's life at all, or family member, unless you're a traditional surrogate. I'm not sure how that would work out, but even still, this child should in no way ever be considered your family just because of the nature of this contract and agreement. And that is pretty obvious. And people like to give you a few questions that they've asked me, like, oh, don't you feel like a sense of emotional attachment when you give birth to this child you've been carrying for 9 or 10 months? I don't see how you could do it. Well, first of all, this child was conceived outside of my body. So there was no lovey-dovey connection. There was no physical intimacy involved. There were probably 3 or 4 people in the room when my first transfer happened. Well, my only transfer in the previous surrogacy. So it wasn't like that lovey-dovey thing. I even had to think twice sometimes, like, oh yeah, I'm actually pregnant after the pregnancy test was positive. You have to remember that, because you were not trying for the pregnancy. Somebody else is. So you have to remember, like, oh, I'm actually pregnant. I'm carrying this child, because you can't see it. You haven't been hoping and wishing for this or anything like that. It's simply an agreement. And so it's a totally different mindset. And then otherwise, like, that's why I say, if you want to do it, it's really best if you're done having kids, or if you're not even done having kids, you're settled on the amount that you have right now. Because, I mean, I'll tell you one thing, that labor and delivery was so long and so tiring, exhausting. After 24 hours, I was still at 6 centimeters. I went in there, my contractions were 4 to 5 minutes apart. I thought this baby was going to come out. No, I was only at 3 or 4 centimeters. A couple hours later, I was at 6. I stayed at 6 for what must have been 16 hours. Just at 6 centimeters. And then I was so uncomfortable. And then I finally got the epidural. And when they gave me the epidural, I totally knocked out. I went straight to sleep. And I didn't wake up for another, I think it was like 6 to 8 hours. I was knocked out. And they actually had to wake me up. And they told me they had done an internal rotation. Somebody literally stuck their hand up there, and I didn't even wake up and realize it. And they put in a Foley catheter. I didn't realize any of this. I literally woke up and was like, oh, I need to brush my teeth. I need to go to the bathroom. They're like, no, you can't move your legs. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. But they said, you're at 10 centimeters now. You're ready to push. And I'm like, huh? I was so confused when I woke up. I was like, what is happening? But trust me, after such a long experience and being so puffy and bloated after all the IV fluids and, you know, the epidural wearing off and all of that, trust me, I was more than happy to let those parents have fun with that child and enjoy staying up late and you know, go ahead and have that kid, you know. I was not like, oh, I wish I could see the baby again. I was like, no. Oh, time for me to discharge. Love y'all. Contact me if you need anything. I'll be pumping the breast milk. I was ready to get home and go to sleep. Okay. So, with that being said, I'm kind of a busybody anyway, because after that I went and picked up my 2 foster kids, but I don't suggest that for anybody else, because that was quite an experience. But I will say that, yeah, there was no emotional struggle, even until now. This little girl lives the best life. I mean, they do such an excellent job that I could never think any other way than for them to have been her parents. Honestly, I am so happy for them. I'm happy for that little girl, and I can't wait to do it again. So if you all have any additional questions for me regarding that contracting part of it, go ahead and comment down below. And if you like this content, please subscribe and like this video. And I will be back with my next video to discuss some of the other fertility medications that are going to be involved in this journey, and also give you an idea of what I'm doing now that I've started Lupron to try to keep my weight stable, do as much as I can to promote a good uterine lining for next month, and just, where my head is at in terms of how I feel about the fact that I could be pregnant in about a month and a half. So yeah, just let me know if you need any other information, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Well, have a great day, be safe, and um, just reach out to me with any additional ideas that you have for any future content because I'm here to help. All right, thanks.